Anyhow, it looks like it is the top of the hour. So why don't we roll this puppy and get this show started? Although I noticed that Parv left his chair, but it's a good thing that we got some time for Joseph to do his thing, so Parv can come back. Oh, there we go. Whew, oh, that's a relief. All right, so welcome everyone to the Thursday, July 21st edition of the Vancouver Power BI and Modern Excel User Group Meetup. We are going to be having Parv Chana talking about the power of calculation groups, best practices, and avoiding pitfalls, which is fantastic. But before we do that, we've got some stuff to cover off here. So our agenda here is that I'm going to speak for about 5 minutes. I'll turn it over to Joseph for our what's new in Power BI, and then at around 6:20-ish, we'll have Parv for the feature presentation, and 7:20-ish, depending on how long Parv wants to talk and how many questions there are, we'll be done for the night. So. The first thing I want to throw out there is a big thanks to our sponsors, SkillWave Training, that is, our training division for Excel Guru and Accelerator BI. It's a joint project here. If you weren't aware of this, there's actually a big sale going on at SkillWave right now. So if you're looking for some fantastic business intelligence training with Power Pivot and Power BI, you should definitely check that out. My company, Excel Guru, down in the bottom left-hand corner, as Stanton and Joseph are just throwing comments in about nice logo. Is that a new logo? Yes, that is a new logo. We have actually just unrolled a brand new, updated, for the first time since 2006 website at Excel Guru. So it actually looks modern now. So you should definitely check that out. I think I got a slide coming up on that one pretty quickly, actually. And of course, Monkey Tools, my software project to help you work with Excel and Power BI models and build better, faster. Our next meetups in 2 weeks, we've got my friend Chandu is coming up, and he's going to be joining us from New Zealand. We're going to be talking about how to make impossible charts using Power Query trickery. So I'm really looking forward to being part of this one and seeing what's going on. If there's one thing that gets me excited, it's working with Power Query to build charts. I'm not quite sure how that's going to happen, but we're going to see. Following that, in a couple more weeks, so a month from now, our next Power BI track is going to be Alice Drummond is our feature presenter. And as we've just been sort of hashing back and forth here, I am providing all things go the way they're supposed to be. I'm supposed to be in an airplane at that point in time. So our one and only Joseph Yeates is going to be hosting that entire evening for us, and I'll be catching the recording a little bit later on that. But I know that Alice has got a cool presentation coming up here that involves the Great Barrier Reef and some cool stuff. So sounds like it's going to be pretty cool as well. So you should definitely RSVP for those meetups. As sort of tipped and mentioned here, we have updated the Excel Guru website now. We have actually brought the blog and all of the knowledge-based articles into the main Excel Guru site. We've upgraded the forums to a new experience. It looks completely different. So if you haven't checked out Excel Guru in a while, you should definitely hop on over and take a quick look around. I am still working on updating some of the articles, just so you know, for formatting and stuff like that. But the main site is out there live, and we'll probably be making a big announcement about that next week. But there you go. My self-service BI bootcamp, as Parv and Joseph and Stan and I were talking about at the beginning, I'm really looking forward to getting back to doing in-person training. And we actually have a couple of options coming up for that with a self-service BI bootcamp. My next one is in a few weeks in Mississauga, Ontario. And right now we've got a really small class for this. We're less than 10 people. So if you're looking for like good in-person with lots of contact with the instructor, you can't beat this option. And it's even on sale right now if you head over to SkillWave. And then if you prefer to be in New Zealand because, hey, you know what, it's just, nice to go down there when it's rainy and cold and wet in Vancouver, you should definitely check out. I'm going to be doing the same boot camp down in Auckland, New Zealand as a Dfinity PostCon as well. So the links for both are there. As a reminder, of course, all of our meetups are recorded and posted usually within 48 hours to our SkillWave YouTube channel, and I'll share the link with that one in a little bit, but this, like all other meetups, will end up getting posted there. The Monkey Shorts videos, which I produce and release weekly. The last 3 episodes here have been working with Power Query IntelliSense and documentation, so I definitely want to check those out. There's less than 3 minutes of technical content, just quick bite-sized pieces here that teach you how to use Excel and Power BI better. I got to tell you, I was actually working with some stuff today, and I posted, man, it's a long time ago now, but a cool tip on working with Windows V for pasting. And I wish I'd discovered it earlier. Holy smokes, it's in the Monkey Shorts, but man, that has changed my life. But there's lots of other cool tips and tricks in there as well. You should definitely check out. Last thing that I want to mention here is if you are interested in coming and speaking at VanPUG, we would love to have you. Please fill out the sponsor form at the bottom here. It's always great to get new people, new content, and new fresh ideas out here. We love hearing about the cool things that you're doing in Excel, in Power BI, anything that touches the whole Power Platform area. If you want to give it a shot, the folks here are very friendly. You get lots of questions about how things work and everything else, and the stuff that you're presenting on. It's a great place to come and cut your teeth if you're interested in presenting. All you got to do is fill out that link and we'll get in touch with you. And on that note, Joseph, I think you know this slide well. This is the segue slide. I think it's your turn now. So we're going to turn it over for what's new.
The call for someone else other than me. Please, please.
No, you love doing this, don't you?
I love it.
I should actually ask you that. Do you ever want somebody to come and pitch in to do the what's new? Should we actually put out a call for that, or do you want to hold on to this quite jealously?
Selfishly, I love doing this, and it helps me keep on top of stuff. But if anyone ever expresses interest, I'm more than happy to share the goodwill around as well.
There you go. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Team
well, I'm
player.
going to mute myself. There you go. I'm going to mute myself now and step aside and let you talk about what's new.
Amazing. Okay. Thanks, Ken. Welcome everyone to the July meetup for the Power BI track to the Vancouver Power BI and Modern Excel user group. My name is Joseph, and for those who haven't been here before, as Ken just said, I usually do the what's new in Power BI. So for the first 15 minutes or so of the session, I'll go over some of the new features for the July release of Power BI. For those of you who have come here before, you'll know that I've spoken a few times over the years as sort of the feature presentation. I've done a session earlier this year on Python. I've done previous sessions on R in Power BI, even one with like financial statements with DAX. So love this user group, as Ken said. Really good vibes. Really welcoming audience. So yeah, a little bit about me before we jump into what's new in Power BI. I'm currently a subject matter expert for business intelligence and data analytics at Corporate Finance Institute. We're an e-learning company, so I help make courses about like Tableau, Python, R, Power BI, and really just love sort of bringing all these BI and data science tools together to get the job done and do some cool things. I have a website, feathersanalytics.com, where I blog about all things Power BI, a little bit about R as well. If you're interested, check that out. And I don't have my slides up. I've only been doing this for 3 years now, and I forgot to put my slides up. But usually my LinkedIn and my Twitter handle is up there as well. But I'm sure, we can put that somewhere on the meetup page or something like that. With that little bit of housekeeping done, let's get into the July release. And I've had a whole week to prepare this month. Sometimes the timing of the monthly feature releases with our meetup group can get kind of close. We've had it in the hours before sometimes, which keeps me on my toes, which is fun. But I would say that, in 15 minutes, I obviously can't cover all of the new things that's new in Power BI this month. But if you do want to have kind of like a full list of everything that's new, things that are in preview, things that are coming soon, things that are now generally available that maybe used to be in preview, definitely check out the monthly blog post from the Power BI Microsoft blog here. So, as always, all the new features are broken down into sort of different sections. We have some new reporting features, and I'll be covering some of those shortly. We have some sort of data modeling and DAX new features as well, data connectivity preparation, so that's all our cool Power Query stuff, and then the Power BI service, the mobile apps, etc. Tons of different areas of Power BI now. I think these different sections used to be 3, and now we're at like 8 to 12 every month, so this is awesome to see. The first new feature that I'll talk about but won't demo in Power BI is error bars. I think I've milked this for all it's worth in the last couple of months as it's been in preview, and sort of going over how we can add these error bars to different visuals in Power BI. So previously, I think it was just line charts that were available, and now we have more formatting options. I think it's available on a few more visuals in Power BI with the ability to add the upper and lower bounds directly on the visual. So this is really useful if we want to add sort of like a standard error to our chart, or if we want to do a forecast and seeing kind of the confidence interval of that as well. Really great way that natively within the visual now, we can add some of these upper and lower bounds, some sort of margin of error, and we can annotate that directly in the visual. We don't have to do some layering magic or any of those sort of fun hacks to get all the information in one visual. Another update that I am going to demo in Power BI is a filled map for Azure Maps now. So I think maybe earlier this year or last year, I demoed, I think when Azure Maps just became a visual natively within the Power BI desktop app. And now we have the ability to do a filled map, which is pretty popular. We see this a lot on the Tableau side as well. A filled map is really common on these kind of marketing screenshots. And it is pretty useful to see, just an entire area, and we can, well, let's jump into Power BI and see how it works. So this is my What's New in Power BI demo report. We go to my Azure Filled Map page, and we'll add the Azure Map visual from the right-hand side here. And I have a table in my data model called US states. And if we go to the data view, I'll just check on US states here. It just has two columns. It has the abbreviation for the state, and I've set that data type as a province or state, as we see the data category up here. And we have the total population of that state in the US. So I'm going to drop that onto my location field for the map. And if we just wait for the magic of Teams and Azure and TomTom and Microsoft to all come together as one, by default, we can see that we have a bubble chart. So I think this is what I demoed before. And one thing we can do is we can take our total population column and drop that in bubble size. And we can change the summarization to sum from count. And then we can see that the states with a larger population have a bigger bubble, like California, Texas, Florida, New York. But one thing that we can do instead, if we go to the format pane, or the format tab rather, in the visualizations pane, right now bubble layer is toggled on. We can take that off, toggle that to off. And if I go back and take this out of bubble size and go back, I can toggle our filled map to on. And then from the drop down, so we can see everything is filled equally. So we can see the outline of all the individual states, but it's all the exact same blue color. And that's because the default right now is blue. But if I hit the little formula symbol next to the color, we can change this by gradient if we want to, rules, or a field value. We'll just leave this on gradient for now. And from our US states query, we'll do total population, and we'll do sum of total population. And now those states that have a lower population will be a lighter color. States with a higher population will be a darker color. I'll hit OK. And then the map should update, and we can see, similar to how the bubbles are a little bit bigger in California, Texas, New York, Florida, now we can see that they're a little bit of a darker color as well. So a good use case for this is if you wanted to look at sales or margin or any of these typical measures that we want to compare states or geographic areas. This might be useful to see trends geographically that might not be as obvious in just like a column or a bar chart where we just want to know what is the highest. But this is cool, and it's really nice user experience, and it's easy to pull together. So I really like this one. If we go back into the blog, one of the other features that I really like is the bold, italics, underlined for text inside of the header tooltip. Not going to demo this today because I've demoed quite a few times in the past, kind of doing all this text formatting in different areas of Power BI. And it's just another place now where we have the exact same experience that we have in the text box, the smart narrative visual, in a lot of different places within our Power BI canvas, and some of the other visuals is now available for the text inside the header tooltip, which is nice. And then the last new feature that I'm going to demo is this metric visual update. So we have lots of updates coming this month. We can see this nice bold message here in the middle. Please note that this will be available in the service in 2 weeks, so that's probably coming sometime next week, and it's going to be made available in the desktop next month. So that's probably going to be in the August What's New. I can't demo this exactly today, but what I will demo today is the scorecard visual. And then next month we can see how we can take just one of those metrics from within the scorecard visual and make it its own visual within our Power BI report. So this scorecard within the Power BI service looks a little bit like this. So this is just one of my workspaces in Power BI. And if I go to metrics, we can see that I don't have any scorecards here. We're actually going to create that within the Power BI desktop app. And then we're going to see that we can push that to the service. But what scorecards allow us to do, if I just head into Power BI and let's set up the scorecard visual, which is this nice little trophy in the visualizations pane. If we make this a little bit bigger, I am signed into the service. There we go. Let's make this a bit bigger so we can see. We have the ability to create a brand new scorecard within Power BI, or we can connect to an existing scorecard. So back here in the Power BI service, if I had one created here, we could simply link to one that we'd created in the service, and it would appear within our Power BI report within the desktop app. I don't have one, so we can create a brand new scorecard. And let's get rid of that error message. So we need to give our scorecard a new name. So let's just call this something creative. I don't know, scorecard 1. Which workspace do we want to publish it to? We'll just do my workspace as the default. We have a description, and then we can also add sensitivity labels if we wanted to. I'm not going to do that for this example, but these are all the things we have to fill out before creating a scorecard. I can hit create. And then we can see scorecard 1 is the title up at the top, and by default, we have a new metric ready for us to populate. So the metric name, we can name like total balance. We can name the owners of this metric. So this is great if you're working at an enterprise level in Power BI. You can assign your corporate KPIs or your corporate OKRs, and we can actually see who owns it directly from within this visual. So I'm going to own this one because I think that's only fair. And we have the ability to sort of hard code or just enter the current value for this total balance amount, or we can connect to external data. So just to enter a value, I can put in like 10,000 or something like that, 10K. Or instead of entering it manually, if I hit connect to data, what this does is all reports that are published to the same workspace, I can click on one of these reports. So we'll do like financial statements in Power BI. And once I have it selected, I can hit next. And then we can just navigate, sort of pointing and clicking within in the report to select the data point that we want to connect to this metric. So if I click revenue in this nice matrix visual, we can just connect to this for our metric. And now we can see that it inherits that value from that report that's already published, and that becomes our metric for the scorecard, which is really cool. We can set the target value. So if the current value is 75 million, we can set the target value. So I can set this to, let's do 70 million. And then we can set a status. Again, we can do it manually. So I can just say we're behind, we're completed, we're on track, we're at risk, or we can set up rules. So I can set up a new rule, and we can say if the current value or the value change is greater than or less than or equal to something. I'm going to say if our value is greater than 100% of the target, we can change the status to completed. Otherwise, the status will be, we'll just say behind and hit save. And once I hit save on this metric and those rules take place, we can see we're completed because we're 75 out of 70 million. But if I wanted to edit this metric and I wanted to change this, cancel out of that, sorry. If I wanted to hard code this instead, which, here we go, edit, sorry. Here, no, that's the target. Okay, let's just move on. I see we're at 620. I think I might have to go update the connection to then delete it. Not as easy as just deleting it in this box. But if I set this to something lower than 70%, this status would change automatically and it would be behind based on the rule set that I created. The other thing we can do is set the start and the due date for this specific metric. So if it was from beginning of the year to end of year, or if we had a different fiscal year for some of our targets, or if we had quarterly goals and OKRs, we could set the start and the due dates here as well. And what's nice is we can add multiple metrics as we go down. And as we add different metrics, we see a nice summary in the scorecard visual up here, the number of metrics we have and the number within all the different statuses that we've set within this scorecard. So what I'm going to demo next month when it's available is the ability to take one of these individual metrics, like total balance, for example, and make that its own visual within a Power BI report so we can see a little bit more visually some of the tracking of our metrics as well. But with that, I know I went a little bit over, but I'm really excited to see what Parv has in store for the feature presentation. So let's hand it back to Ken and we can get started. So thank you everyone for your time. And yeah, looking forward to calculation groups in Power BI.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joseph. As always, appreciate your work on this stuff, and looking forward to seeing the update when I catch it on the recording next month. So,
exactly.
There you go. Awesome. In that case, you know what? It is my great pleasure to welcome my friend Parv Chana back to the show for a nice dive into calculation groups. I'm looking forward to this. So Parv, are you ready, sir?
Yes, always.
Excellent. Then the floor is yours. Let's do it.
Thank you. Awesome. Let's do it. I guess first thing is you guys can hear me all right?
We can hear you fine. I think you're good to go there.
Right. Let me share my screen. The screen which I wanted to share. Not the one which I don't want to share. All right. Let's see if Teams work. Perfect. I'm going to get you out of the way. So don't bug me.
I can see a screen, Parv. I hope it's the one you wanted to share. It says calculation groups.
Beautiful. Awesome.
There you go.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That made it easy. Great. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining and glad to be here. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Joseph. This is amazing what you showed about the metrics and all that stuff. Is interesting stuff. I'm not using metrics, but I think this is something I really wanted to use. And but anyhow, we're going to talk about calculation groups. A couple of things. If you want me to, you want to ask any questions on the way when I'm presenting, please feel to bug me or anything on put in a chat. I have it opened on another monitor. I will try to answer the questions during my presentation. So what we're going to talk about today is calculation groups. I'm not sure how many of you guys have used calculation groups until today in Power BI. This feature was rolled out, maybe if I'm not mistaken, maybe 3 years ago. It's very, very powerful. I used it a lot and I love it a lot. And it's amazing a feature in Power BI, but it's actually quite deadly as well, which we will go through in this presentation. So in the meantime, while I'm just going to go through a few slides, I just want to make sure if you guys put in the chat window, if you guys used calculation groups in the past, or you guys never used it, or this is the first time you're going to look into the calculation groups, it will help me to make sure my presentation is to take it in a different direction. Depending if a lot of people already use calculation group, I will make it more advanced. Otherwise, I will trim it down. So please, if you're using calculation groups, please put your comments in the chat. Thank you. All right, so I have a few people. Manmeet is saying he uses it all the time. Awesome, good to know. So I guess I have to catch a few things from you. Henry just started, and Alejandra is using first time. Total newbie. Ron, great. First time, never used. Okay, awesome. So I guess there's a mixed things where people used calculation groups, and a lot of you guys either used it or never used it previously. So I will go through actually in this presentation why you should actually first think of using calculation groups, what value it brings, and then at the end we will talk about why what are the things we need to be really careful when we're using calculation groups. Quickly about the agenda for today, we're going to talk about, of course, calculation groups, when to use calculation groups, what are the best practices, pitfalls we have to be really, really careful when we're using calculation groups, and where we should go to learn more about calculation groups. For me, it is really, really powerful tool and a powerful feature in Power BI, and I will talk through that why that is the case. Quickly about me, my name is Parvinder Chana, also short name Parv Chana, and I'm in Power BI working all the time in since Power BI came in inception 2015. I was Tableau guy before that, but stumbled upon Power BI. Just I think it's a good timings, and since then I never looked back. I run a consulting company called PeryTUS IT Solutions. I'm in a very close to Ken and Joseph in Vancouver here, and love our city. It's beautiful. And I have my YouTube channel, which I started start of this year, January 1st. And I have like around 105 or 6 videos. Actually, I did 100 videos in 100 days. And a lot of my videos are more about talking more business problems, how to solve those in Power BI. So do check out my channel. If you ask me, is it for the basic learning or where does it fit in the scale? I would say it is an intermediate to advanced kind of features which I share, or some DAX codes and all the stuff. So do check that out. Again, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn as other people here, and I'm a Power BI community super user as well. Power BI community super user started like I think 2016 or so. I've been a super user since then. So the reason why I bring Power BI community, if you ever have any questions or anything you want to really want to ask about Power BI, the community, Power BI community is a forum, is a great place. Amazing people over there. I learn from there, and I feel like giving back to the community as well. So it's an amazing place where you can learn and give it back. And I've been a Microsoft Data Platform MVP 4 years now. Hopefully make it to the 5th year. It's a tough thing to keep up, but trying my best. Anyhow, that's about me, and let's get started. So first of all, what is calculation groups? When we talk about calculation group, what we're talking about here. So calculation group is a special kind of table in Power BI, which is basically a table with a single column. And actually, there are 2 columns, but here I mentioned the single column. By default, the second column is hidden. And it has 2 columns, and you cannot, first of all, that this calculation groups in the Power BI desktop, you cannot create calculation groups. You need to use the third-party tool, either through the Visual Studio, or the most famous is Tabular Editor, which we're gonna look and see. Again, Tabular Editor, just talk about that. It's a third-party tool. There are 2 versions of Tabular Editor. There's a version 2 and version 3. Version 3 is a paid version, and version 2, which is the, I think was the initial version, it is free. You can download and you can use that with your Power BI data models. What is there a difference between 2 and 3? I don't want to go too much in detail. 3 brings a little bit more features, but to create or make the changes to the data model, they both are at the parity with each other. So if you really, for example, want to do calculation groups, you can still use the Tabular Editor too. 3 is not going to bring any new value or anything for you. So I use Tabular Editor all the time, but if you have another ways to connect to your data model through the Visual Studio, you can surely do that. So the property of the calculation groups is like it's a table with a single column. Actually, there are two columns, as I said, one is hidden. And what this table contains is it has the calculation item. So calculation group will become a table in your Power BI model, just like a regular table. For example, you connect to a SQL server, you connect to a table, you connect to a Excel, you connect to a sheet that becomes a table in your model. Similarly, calculation group is a table in your model. And then there are calculation items. What those are? Calculation items are rows or the records in a calculation group. So for example, if you have a customer table and you have 100 customers in that, similarly, you have one calculation group, let's call it time intelligence, and it has 5 different calculation items, let's say month to date, year to date, quarter to date. Those becomes the rows in calculation group. So it's just look like a regular table in Power BI. One thing I want to call out here, unfortunately, if you're looking at a model as of today, in Power BI, if I give you a Power BI file and you look at the icons on what you have in the tables in your desktop, you will not able to tell if this is a calculation group table or it is a regular table or coming from your source or you manually created in Power BI. There's no identifier in Power BI to tell that this is a different table, but I think the icon is going to change some point of time. I think there was something on the Twitter yesterday where Microsoft product team asked about what kind of icon you want to look about this. So it seems like down the road, it will look like there will be a separate icon or a differentiation in the regular table between your calculation groups table. But at this point of time, as of today, there is no way looking at your Power BI model or in the tables in Power BI desktop, you can tell what is calculation group table is. There are some special functions which really work with the calculation groups, and I will quickly talk about that. So this is what makes a calculation group. So basically a table with calculation items, which becomes the records, and then there are special functions which are used in the calculation groups. And we will talk about what those functions are and how those get used. Ron asked a question, could you create a table in Excel data manager and then import to PBI? Unfortunately not, because calculation group has some special properties. You cannot do that. If you create a table in Excel file and bring it in Power BI, it will just like a regular table in your model. So it would not be anything different. The reason behind that is the special functions, the DAX functions, which I talked about that, which you cannot use in your regular table. Those functions can be only used in calculation groups. So the question is when to use calculation groups. So the first part is the reusable calculation. So for example, if you are performing any calculation again and again repeatedly on anything, then that is the point when you think the point which is the decision factor to use the calculation groups. The example for that would be, for example, you have a time intelligence is a very, very common example. Let's say you have a month to date, quarter to date, and year to date calculations you perform in your model for visualization purpose. Now you have a sales, you have a quantity, number of orders, discount, freight, you name it. So you have all these measures, and now you have to create the month to date, quarter to date, year to date measures for all these sales, quantity, and all the stuff. How you do it today, you create a month to date function for a measure for sales. You create a month to date function for quantity. You do the month to date measure for your number of orders. And now at the end of the day, what you're doing in this month to date is you're just changing the measure. You're calculating, okay, sum sales and give me month to date. And in the quantity, you are saying it's a sum quantity and give me the month to date of the quantity. And the month to date logic is the same. Does not matter what measure you use. The calculation to do the month to date is still the same. Let's say you're using the standard calendar table. You are still using dates month to date function and pointing to calendar table. So, but now you have to create all these different measures for your base measures like sales, quantity, number of orders, discount, and you name it. the point is, so anytime you want to make a business logic change, it means you have to make the business logic change in every individual measure. This is where the calculation groups shine. So anything which is repeated, in this particular case, month to date, quarter date of calculations, you can really use the calculation groups because you provide the formula once that whatever your month to date calculation is or your quarter to date calculation is, then it get applied on all the any measures which you wanted to use. You want to apply that same logic. It's like writing a stored procedure or a function in SQL and then calling that function again and again, passing some parameter values, and it perform the calculation for you. It's pretty much filled that gap when we're using calculation groups. So anytime we're using the reusable calculations, that's where calculation groups come handy. Changing relationship. This is really, really powerful. I will actually, instead of talking about this, I will walk through this in the demo where this becomes really, really handy. Dynamic format string. This comes handy when multi-currency you are dealing with. For example, traditionally what we do is, let's say we are seeing the sales by country, and now we want to show the sales currency symbol in the native symbol of the country at which we are looking at. Right now, the way to do that is you will convert your measure into a string to display in the matrix visual, but then you cannot use it anywhere else. So you can really do amazing things using the calculation groups, that you are not converting your measures into a text string, but actually you can perform a logic on or a business logic on your how your measure should look like when it comes on the visuals. So you can actually see the sales. Let's say if I'm looking at the sales by country, and when I'm looking at the UK, I want to see the sterling pound, a symbol next to it. When I'm looking at Germany, I want to see the euro symbol. And when I'm looking Canada, USA, I want to see the dollar. So you can actually dynamically control what currency symbols you want to see. So it's not about the currency symbols. Basically, you can really create a dynamic format string and provide your own logic the way you want to see the measures in your visuals. There is no other mechanism in Power BI to do that unless you convert your string numbers or measures into a text column and put the logic there. If this is the country, then add a sterling pound to it or whatever you want to do. So calculation groups allow us to do that. And the last and not least, I'm pretty sure there's tons of other use cases, but these are the 4 use cases which I found I'm using it quite a lot, which is like select and switch measures, where you want to give the power to the user. So you created a report, you want a user to, okay, you're showing a matrix or a bar chart, and you want to give the power to the user, like, okay, you're seeing the sales over period. Now you want the user to be through the slicers or through the interaction that you want the user to change the sales to the quantity and or the quantity to discount. Again, the field parameters, the new feature which came out like a month ago, does allow us to do that. But prior to that, this was the best way to achieve that. You can actually change the measures on the visuals. And the field parameters allow us to change the columns as well as the measures. But calculation groups with above 3 features, the reusable calculations, changing the relationships, and the dynamic format string, the field parameters cannot achieve that. Field parameters, the new feature which came out, if you haven't explored that, surely do look for that. You can surely select and switch the measures, but none of the first 3 features you can achieve using field parameters. Yes, Manmeet, yeah, the calculation group can surely work with the field parameters. Yes, it can. And that's actually the best practice, that how you should be using calculation groups and the field parameters for columns and the calculation groups for your measures and all this stuff. So I'm going to talk about all these things and go through the demo and show you guys what I'm talking about and how does this all fit in this whole scheme of things. So here I have a very simple Power BI report. I just want to, before I jump into what I'm showing here, I want to quickly show you guys the model what we have currently in front of us. If you guys, it doesn't matter what we do. You can be a DAX expert, you can be a Power Query expert. But the modeling is core of the Power BI, and this is where people never get their head wrapped around. So if your model is not good, doesn't matter how learning through can teach you all the Power Query tricks and all the stuff, but eventually if you don't know how to model your data, the clean data would not give you anything, because the modeling is what the heart of Power BI is. So here I have a simple model where I have a sales table. Of course, that's the fact table. I have a product, I have a calendar table and customers and all that fun stuff. Again, this model is not perfect because this is still a snowflake model. That's awesome, Ken. Yeah. Oh, good to know. I need to learn a few things from you. So here this is a snowflake schema, but I'm not gonna go into the modeling and all the stuff. The point which I want to bring here is our sales table has a relationship with the calendar table, which is of course is the right way to do it. But we all know, I assume the people here on the call here and today, they know that we can have only one active relationship between two tables. That in this particular case, that I have a sales table and I have a relationship with the calendar table, and my active relationship is on the date dimension with the order date. So I cannot have my active relationship with the other columns between the two columns. So it's only one column can have the active relationship in Power BI. There's no other way. This is the only way that you have if your dimension is connected to your fact table and you have a multiple columns you are connecting on, you have one active relationship and other two are the inactive relationship. And this is where I will show you the demo why the power calculation groups become really, really powerful. And these two are really a product and customer is a regular a relationship. So what I have here in the visualization, what I'm seeing is like I'm seeing the sales by year and the sales order count and the quantity. So this matrix is working and perfectly fine if this is what the user is looking for. But what things we are missing here is two things. Is first of all, what date we are seeing, like this Q4 2017, $44,000, which date it is using right now. And what about if I want to switch to the different date? To talk about this is like currently we are looking at the $44,000 is based on the order date, not on the ship date or on the due date. The reason behind that is because this is the active relationship. So if we created a sum of sales and we plot it on the calendar dimension, the relationship it is using, what is the active relationship in our model. So what we are seeing here is based on the order date. But how about if I really wanted it to show it on the due date or the ship date? So what are the traditional ways of do that without calculation groups? What I need to do is I need to create another measure in my model which will be using the different relationship. And to do the another measure, what I already created that to save the time. So I have another measure called sales ship date. So what I'm doing is sum of sales, and then I'm activating the different relationship. So I'm saying, okay, when I'm using this measure, then use this relationship because this relationship is now active, but only for this particular measure. If I use this measure, then I'm using the ship date as my active relationship, not the order date, which is by default the active relationship. So then what I need to do is, so if I have three measures, it means I need to recreate all these three measures. Order count also need to use the user relationship, and the quantity also need to create another measure called the user relationship. So again, there are two things. We talked about the repeated things, which is again, we are switching the relationship, which is a repeated task. And then we want to switch from order date to the different relationship. So in nutshell, if I really have to do all this stuff, I just created this Excel sheet just to demo through. If there was no calculation groups we use, what would have happened? So I have three measures, which is order, quantity, sales, and quantity, which are the three base measures. So they will work fine. In this particular sense, the order count will be based on the order date, sales will be based on the order date, and quantity will be based on the quantity. So if I'm creating month to date, quarter to date, year to date, based on the order date, it means I need to create 3 different measures for the order based on the order date. I need to create the month to date 3. So these 3 measures I need to create for the month to date based on the order date, so which is already there. Then I need to create the month to date for the ship date as well, 3 more measures. So basically, end of the day, if we really needed to be creating all these measures for all these order date, ship date, and due date, and also on the month to date, quarter to year to date. These are just 3 time intelligence. There are tons of time intelligence functions and measures we use. So we will end up 27 measures in our model, and that's very, very hard to handle. And think about if we want to change a logic for the month to date. I mean, very rarely you will argue like, why would we change the month to date logic? But let's say our business was calendar year, the fiscal period changed. It's not January to December anymore. It changed to something different. It means we need to go to the each measure and then manually make the changes where our business logic is. So basically at that point of time, we will be changing the 9 measures. So of course, if there is a fiscal period change, it means the quarter date change as well, year to date as well. So we will be touching each and every measure. This is where the calculation groups shine. So how I would achieve all this with calculation groups, which will not, I have my business logic in one single place. I make a change and it applied on all the measures. Along with that, I'm not spilling my model with all these crazy. End of the day, I have just a 3 measures, which is number of orders, total sales, and the total quantity. And I want to visualize it based on the order date. I want to see a month to date based on the order date. I want to see month to date based on the due date. So basically, this is my selection, but the fundamental calculation, the base measures are still the same. It's a number of orders. So how we do that, and this is where the calculation group shines. I'm going to quickly talk about what we need to do to create the calculation groups. So first of all, in my Power BI desktop, I'm pretty sure you guys also have. I have external tool. I have a Tabular Editor 3 and 2. Both of those tools, as I said, I use Tabular Editor. I'm going to use this whole thing in the Tabular Editor 2 because in case you decided to not to buy Tabular Editor 3, you will still able to use that Tabular Editor 2. So I'm going to launch Tabular Editor, which is already here. So if you click on Tabular Editor, it will launch it. So here, what we have is, so this is what you see in the Tabular Editor. So I'm not gonna go in Tabular Editor, but the way you add the calculation group is you right click on the tables and then you say create new. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a calculation group. And here I click calculation group. Now this is, it asks me what the name of the calculation group is. As I said, calculation group is a table. So whatever the name we will give here, it will become a table in our model. So let's for demo purpose, I'm going to create a calculation group called select a measure. So this will become a table name in my model. And now if I go into select a measure calculation group, it has a column, or this is a by default column in the calculation groups, which is called the name. I can change it whatever I wanted it to be. So I'm going to rename it to call it maybe the same as the calculation group name. So my calculation group is called select a measure, and my column name in this calculation group is also called select a measure. So now there are calculation items. So what those calculation items are, as I said, those becomes the rows in your calculation group. So I'm going to add a new calculation item. So right click on that and new calculation item. So the first calculation item I want to create is called sales. So what I want to do with this is I want to say, OK, if when I use this calculation item, I want to return the sales as my measure. So sales is already a measure in my model. So I'm just simply writing a measure called sales. So sales is, again, I just quickly show you guys what the sales is. Sales is just a sum of total sales amount in my model. So that's my base measure. So I created a calculation group called select a measure. Under that, I created a calculation item called sales. And what the sales is going to do, it's going to return my measure called sales. And I'm going to create another calculation item here. let's call it second. Ooh, what happened here? We close, never seen this. Once you apply the changes, it asks you in Power BI desktop to refresh your model, because right now it doesn't know the new calculation group is coming up. So the first time I will refresh it. So I will see the select a measure. Here you go. In the model, I see a table called select a measure. If we go in a table view, so you cannot identify that as a separate table or a different icon for that. It's just a regular table icon. So if I go select a measure, I think it created a few calculation items. So what you see is I have a table called select a measure. Under that, there is a column called select a measure because that's the name I renamed it. And it has the 4 line items, which is sales, new calculation items 1 and 2. I think it automatically created that. Let me launch it again. So I'm going to go to tabular editor and I'm going to tables, select a measure. So yeah, sorry, it didn't show up previously. So here I have new calculation. So I'm going to call it quantity. So what I want is on this calculation item, I want this to return me my quantity measure. So that's this. And then the third one I'm going to create, I'm going to rename it to call number of orders. Maybe orders count. And I think I have a measure called count. You can actually write a measure here as well, whatever you want. So that is the distinct count. So this is what I'm going to use in my, I can drag and drop. And this fourth one, I don't need it. I'm going to delete it. So now in my calculation group, I have 3 calculation items, sales, quantity, and orders count. I'm going to apply those changes. So I'm going to save it to my model. So once this is done, of course, it's going to ask me to refresh my model. So come back in Power BI, refresh. So now I see 3 different rows in my calculation group, sales, quantity, and order count. So this ordinal is basically is the index. If I want my sales to be the last one, I can really change the index, and that I will do in the tabular editor as well. But how this is different than what we were doing previously. So come back to this particular metrics visual. So how we were using this metric visual until now. So I have my rows on my year hierarchy on my rows. And then I have 3 different measures, sales, order count, and the quantity on my values. So basically whatever is given in these measures is showing me here. But what about if I really want to only see sales, not order count and quantity, or I really want to see the order count and not quantity, whatever the different reasons are, or maybe I want to see the due date and ship date, which we talked about. But let's first see how I can switch these measures, or I can remove these measures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my select a measure, which calculation group we created, use that on my columns, and then I can use any measure on my values. So what happens at this point of time? So I have only 1 measures on my value section at this point of time, but I'm seeing my count, order count, as well as quantity, as well as the sales as well. So I'm seeing all those where this is all coming from. So again, the calculation group table we're using on the columns. Yes, you can do that. 100% JK, yes, you can do that. In the order count, quantity, and sales, and we are seeing all those 3 measures. So this is great. So this is working fine. But how it is different than what I was doing previously? But it gives me the power here. I can use my selective measure as a slicer, and then what I can do here is I can say I would just want to see the order count, and here you go. I can only want to see the order count. I want to see the sales. So whatever I want. Now the user. End user, you give him the option, whatever is relevant to him for his purposes or whatever, that he can actually use that, and quantity, and I can use that quantity. So we are using 1 measure in our matrix visual, but we are using calculation groups to drive what we want to see. But one thing you probably already noticed here that everything is showing a dollar sign here. The reason behind that is the value, the measure which we are using on the one basic measure we are using on our matrix visual is the sales. And the sales measure by default, the format string for that is the currency, and that's why we are seeing everything in dollars. How about if I change it to quantity or order count? And now what happens is the format of the order count change, even the sales I want to see in the dollars, but orders count and the quantity I want to see as a number. And that's where the format string come in the picture. So I'm going to quickly switch to the I talked about that you can define your own format string. So what I'm doing here is coming back to the calculation groups, then I can go to the orders count in my calculation item. And I want it to be, I can go here and change the format string expression, or I can manually type it in here. So I can define for each calculation item what format string I want to use. So I can say, OK, when I'm on the order count, I'm returning the order count as my measure, and I want to see this string like a decimal, without decimal and comma separated. And similar apply to my quantity as well. Go to the format string, and I'm going to use this. And for sales, I wanted to use my dollar sign. So that would be, let's say, if this is the string I want with the 2 decimal places. So I can really write whatever the logic I want to control the format string. I can go crazy here. And so basically, end of the day, whatever the business logic I applied on the format string would show up in my visuals. So here you go. So what we have here is it does not matter what measure I'm using in the visualization. The sales calculation item is always returning the sales your measure behind the scene and following this format string. So now I can see the quantity. If I wanted to sales, it will follow the sales dollar and all the stuff. So this is really, really powerful. Now, OK, so this did help to just to select the measures. As I said, with the field parameters, you can do it. But this doesn't bring a lot more values, and how it reduced the number of measures which we talked about. So think through this. Right now, I'm looking the order count based on the order date because that is the active relationship. And if I really want to see it on the ship date and on the due date, I really need to create 2 more measures. But can I use calculation groups for that? Yes, I can. So I'm going to switch back to the my tabular editor, and I think I already have that created here to save the time. So what I have here is another calculation group called selected date. So what I did in there is in a selected date, I created 3 calculation items called ship date. Again, now here comes our special function. I talked about the calculation group as a selected special function. So the selected measure is a special function in calculation groups. So what we're telling here, hey, whatever measure is used in the visualization, apply this logic on that measure. So what I'm telling here is if I'm looking at the sales measure in my visual, then if I selected the ship date, use this relationship because I'm making my ship date relationship active in this particular case. And when I'm in the order date, I don't want to do anything because my order date is already active. So what I want it to be just to return whatever the measure I'm using on my visualization, just return that value of that measure. I don't need to do anything else. And when I'm in the due date, so use the due date relationship. So basically, I created a calculation group which allow me to choose whatever date I wanted to use, and I gave my business logic here, whatever I want to do in this particular calculation item, and I want to apply this on any measure which I'm using on my visualization. And let's see how does this look like if we go back in Power BI. So I'm gonna bring another calculation item here, group which is called selected date. So if I bring this on my calculation, let's say what I'm going to do here is let's use this new selected date in the matrix visual. So instead of select a measure, I said select a date. So now I'm seeing the different numbers. So what I'm seeing is I'm seeing the order counts based on the due date, order date, and ship date. So as you can see in 2018, based on the due date, we have a 2,139 orders. And based on the order date, we have 2,200 orders. And based on the ship date, we have 2,178 orders. So now does not matter what measure I'm using, if I'm looking at the quantity or the sales dollar amount. So I did not create new measures to make that happen. So this calculation group, which I am using, it automatically applying the business logic on the measure which this calculation group is returning. So this calculation group is returning sales, and it's showing me the sales by the due date, it's showing me the sales by order date, and it's showing me the sales by ship date. So if I really go crazy here and make this as my slicer as well, I can do really two things. I can say, okay, I want to see only the due date, but I want to see sales and the quantity based on the due date. I'm not using that measure here. So let me select a measure here as well. So if I drill it down to the columns. So what I have is I have a quantity and sales by due date. I have quantity and sales by order date. I have a quantity and sales by ship date. So now user has the choice. What I want to see, I just want to see the sales, and I want to see the sales by due date, order date, and ship date. I really want to see the order date, and I want to see all these three measures by order date. So now all of a sudden, we have three basic measures behind the scene. We have a sales, which is sum of sales. We have quantity, which is sum of quantity, and the order count, which is distinct count of orders. With three base measures, we can switch between how we want to see the data. We can select which date we want to use. We are not, we haven't written like all those crazy measure use relationship. We given that logic in our selected date calculation group. Hey, if I'm using due date, then my logic is use a relationship, and the relationship between the calendar date and the order date, use that relationship. So it's really, really powerful all of a sudden, like within like 30 minutes or we already created something so dynamic. Think about that. If you really have to do that, and we're not spilling our model with gazillion of measures. And on top of that, let's say if I have a month to date logic and quarter to date logic and year to date logic, I already created one for that as well, which I called it time intelligence. So what I have here is in time intelligence, I call the calculation time intelligence, and I have the name of the column in that is called period, and I given my logic, hey, month to date. So this is what I want. So what I want is when I'm using month to date, I want whatever the measure is shown on the visual, apply this logic to just calculate month to date, and similar quarter to date and year to date. So now it does not matter if I want to see the sales dollar month to date or the quantity by month to date. This calculation group is going to take care of all that stuff because this is where I given my logic. So if I go back and look into the time intelligence and bring that into the folder as well, let's bring in the period. So for example, if we are here, if we are using the period as our so what I'm seeing here is right now I'm seeing if I have to go drill down one level next, select a measure, actually make it single slicer will help. Slicer settings, selections, single select. So right now I'm seeing month to date, quarter to date, and year to date for my orders count based on the due date. So I can now switch my relationship. I can select what measure I wanted to see. I want to see sales, and I can select what I wanted to see. I want to see sales month to date, quarter to year to date, and I can actually choose. I want to see only quarter to date. I don't want to see anything else. I want to see quarter to date by due date and by order date. So now I can actually switch because I'm not using a selected date here in my visual. So if I go select a date here and drill down in my columns. So what if I drill down? So I'm seeing my quarter to date by due, actually maybe period is on the top, depending on what you want to do, but it's way too flexible right now. So I want to see my quarter to date sales by the due date and the order date, or I also want to see the ship date. Okay, that's perfectly fine. And I want to also see month to date. So what we have here is, I'm going to expand it. So we have month to date, due date. So whatever the year I selected, right now I'm seeing the sales order. So the sales amount, if I switch to quantity, everything is now switched to quantity. So basically with these three calculation groups, we made it so dynamic all of a sudden. We can select what measure we want to see. We want to select a date, relationship, what we want to see. We want to see the period, what we wanted to see. So we can also, decide if I really don't want to see the year, quarter date, month to date. So I can really see year to date. So you're giving the power to the user, select what you want to see, how you want to see, what calculation you want to see, and you can really go crazy with calculation groups. This is so powerful. So again, going back to, we are reusing the calculations again and again. So if tomorrow some logic change, let's say the month to date logic changes, they say, okay, the month to date exclude certain product which is not active. I will make that logic in this particular calculation item here, and that is applied on all the measures which I'm using. So this becomes really powerful. I'm making a change at one place and it's propagated everywhere. So that makes it very powerful. Again, quickly going back to the presentation, I just want to make sure that I cover the area, but I want to talk about it's a powerful, but it's a scary too, and I will tell you guys why that is the case. So we talked about reusable calculation, changing relationship, dynamic format string, how which actually maybe I'll quickly switch to the dynamic format string here. For example, if I'm seeing this report by country, let me bring country here, not on the time period because that doesn't make any sense. Let's say I'm seeing this by country and I want my sales dollar. Okay, so it's showing me dollars. So I want it to be based on the native currency. When I'm in the United Kingdom, I want the sterling pound. Let's say if that is the case. And of course, the total would not make sense. But let's say when I'm in Germany or France, I want it to be used the euro symbol. So I can go back to my calculation group and go to my selective measure, which is doing everything for us, returning. So in a selective measure, I'm defining this is my format. So now here I can put the logic, whatever the business logic I want to use. I'm saying, okay, let's quickly do this. Let's say selected country is equal to maybe selected value of my geography table, I think country column, and the return, maybe I can say switch selected country. Let me find out what the name of the countries are. Let's say if it's France, I want my symbol to be euro, which I have it somewhere here. And when I'm in United Kingdom, I want my logic to be show sterling pound. Let's stick to these two countries and then say otherwise just give me dollar. So I'm put my business logic here. And then my rest of the format string is still the same. I still want to see 2 decimal places. I mean, I can control if I really don't want to see the 2 decimal places for euro, I can really. So basically I can write my very complex logic in my format string. And if I apply this and there's no error, there is. So format string expression, United Kingdom. I'm missing a comma here. Apply again. Let's go back here. There you go. As you can see immediately, in United Kingdom, our sign for format string is a sterling pound, and for France it's euro, and for rest everything is my dollar sign. So I can go crazy whatever I want it to be. And again, this particular logic for the format string I just gave when I'm using the calculation items a sales. Because the dollar sign or the symbol, currency symbol, is not applicable for my quantity or order count. So if I switch to quantity, this is what the format string is within the quantity. So I can really go crazy and do these things. So this is really what the calculation groups brings: a lot of value, lot of flexibility, lot of power to the user, and which otherwise not possible within Power BI. You cannot, like, think about this. Is if I really want to plot this as in a line chart, for example, not this one. If I really want to plot this as in a bar chart or whatever you want to name it, not the right thing, but let's say if I'm, doesn't make any sense though, actually go back and turn the data label on. And maybe I'm not sure how you can read this small font or not. So as you can see, it's on $18,000 dollar symbol, $97 symbol, and 87 Australia. And as soon as we come to the United Kingdom, even your tooltip is showing the sterling pound and your data label is showing that. So there's no other way in Power BI that you can actually really mix and match these currency symbols, right? So the calculation groups bring that value. But again, the lot more power come with a lot more responsibility. So here is where things start falling apart. I'm just gonna go back to my original, but in the meantime, let me double check if there are any questions before I go to how to avoid the pitfalls. Is there any question which same, I use a different formats. Yeah, JK, you can do that. Queries that calculating requires an external tabulator. Queries native concept. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, hopefully one day. Field parameters I've issued and implemented. I will try Manmeet, but I don't have any demo. You can really reach out to me later on. If we could, I couldn't get there, and I can help you in that.
But the same question on this: when you apply DEX, when you apply the calculation group and change the context of the DEX, I really find it hard when a calculation group is applied on a visual and you want to apply a dynamic labeling of the headers. Or so that was the pitfall I want to ask you. Is there a way that when you change the context of the measure by applying a CG to retain the original titling or something like that? I'm finding very hard.
Yeah, coming to that. That's a great question. Thanks. Can you do automatic currency exchange value, not just changing the currency indicator? Yes, you can do that. Again, that's just your think through that is your whatever the business logic. Actually, I'm working on one project right now. Unfortunately, I cannot share and show that right now. And this data is spread over multiple currencies across multiple countries. And their parent country, I think parent company headquarter is in a euro currency, and their child or the countries under that parent company are in Czechoslovakia and different countries, different currency symbols. So what they wanted to show is when you are at the country level in a metric visual, let's say your parent is in euro and your sub countries under that is in different currencies. They wanted is that when you are at the country level, then there's no conversion required. If I'm looking in the euro, I'm looking in the euro, there's no multiplication. But when I'm in the UK, I'm looking at the sterling pound and all the stuff. And when I'm in the USA, I'm seeing the dollars. But when I come to the parent level at the top, like in this particular case, what we're seeing here is the total does not make sense. What total is this? Like this is not a US, oh, let's say it's a Canadian or US dollar. 640,000 is not a US dollar or Canadian dollar because we have a mix of currencies. We have a pound, we have a euro. We need to apply the foreign exchange to the total. So in their particular example, they wanted to see the value at the country level in their native currencies, but when it comes to the parent level, they want to these values, whatever the parent level of the company is, which was in a euro, then convert these values in the euro. Of course, right now, this number 640, if we sum this up, this makes sense. But when you convert this 640, like 83,000 is now converted into US dollars and 66,000 converted to US dollars, this number is now correct in US dollars. But when you sum up these child or these countries, they are not the total. So but you can, so all that was I was able to achieve. Actually, I'm going to do a YouTube video on that, how I was able to do that. And it was really interesting problem to solve for, that you want to see the native and then apply the business logic on the total level to do the conversion and all stuff. But end of the day, all that stuff was possible through the calculation groups because they had, I'm talking about 3 measures here. You guys would not believe, because this is an analytical company, does the analytic for retail. They have around 125 different metrics like this. Think about that, the 120 different metrics, like they have a number of hours, total hours, wages per hour, gazillion metrics they are measuring for a retail organization. And so this list is what we're seeing is a 3. That list was like 120 metrics, basic measures. And think about that, if you have the 120 measures and you have to perform all these calculations along with the calculation group, there's no way that doing that without calculation groups will be possible. And on top of that, they want these things to be selectable by their end users. So I want to see, total hours versus wages hours, right? And I want to see sales versus per hour wage rate, and all that was possible through the calculation groups. Yes, you can really do anything. The sky is the limit, but again, as I said, it comes with a lot of planning. Whatever we saw right now, it seems very straightforward and easy, and it's a standard calculation groups, the power calculation groups brings. But I will show you where it starts falling apart and how you should be making sure when you're using calculation groups or when you're planning to use calculation groups, what things you should be taking care of. So let's talk about that. So for example, now here comes the requirement. We want to show a title here because we have a lot of selections going on, and we want to say, okay, when I have a year to date selected, or when I have a different of these things are selected, I wanted to show me that as a title. Hey, you have selected sales measure and whatnot. So let's write another measure here quickly for the title, and I will show you. I think this this will also answer your question as well. And if not, then do let me know. So let's say I'm going to call it my title. So what I want to do is I want to say, okay, when I select a measure, I want my title to show a string, say you have selected whatever the measure I've selected here. So I'm saying you have selected, and since this is just a single selection, so I can use a selected value, and I can use a selective measure. Sorry, select a measure, and then let's just format it because I can't handle non-formatted DAX formulas. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, okay, just whatever the measure we have selected here, I'm just showing that in my in my KPI or a title or whatever you want to call it. So I think I gave it a name, my title. So let's use that and bring it in the visualization here. Use a card visual. And let's category table label off. Here you go. So this is the first problem we hit into. So my measure, which is my title, I actually given the instructions you have selected. This is supposed to happen. Selected value, whatever the value is selected here, and then show that. But I'm getting this weird number in here. So sorry. So why that is happening? And let's say if I select quantity, all of a sudden I'm seeing 1970, and of course this is this number. And if I select order count, I'm seeing 871, which is this number. So what's happening here? So think through this is what we did is we told in this calculation group, hey, when I'm using this calculation group, any item in that calculation group is selected, which is a calculation item, what it's supposed to do. So what I said in my select a measure, hey, when you go to the orders count calculation item, always return order count. When I'm in the quantity, always return quantity. When I'm in a sales, always return sales. So again, what is happening in this particular case, we are using a measure, even we are using a measure called, which we just created, we call the measure my title, but that doesn't matter because the calculation group is overwriting that. It says, because we force in the calculation group, hey, when I'm using this calculation item, I supposed to return the order count. I don't care what field or what measure you're using on your visualization. This calculation item in this calculation group is overwriting whatever measure I use. Does not matter what measure I use. As soon as I have orders count selected, it is going to return the orders count, and that's what we are happening is. So how we work with this, how I want my title to be shown here, and or any other exception I want it to be. So this is where another calculation group functions come in the picture. So there is a function called selected measure name. So what that means is, as the name of the function says, okay, if this whatever the name, it returns at what the current selected measure is being used. So I can now put a logic here, and I can say, okay, if selected measure name is my title, then please don't return the sales, then return my title measure. Otherwise return sales. So this I'm doing in my calculation item called sales. So what I'm saying in my sales calculation item, hey, if the measure on the visual, the name of that measure is called my title, then return my title, otherwise return the sales. So I'm adding this business rule to divert or put the condition what I wanted to do. So when this calculation item is being used. So let's see how does that plays out. So if I go back, so here you go. Already you can see the difference. So in my this particular visual, I'm using my title. So we given the instruction to our calculation item. If my title measure is being used, then just return whatever is in the my title. Otherwise return the sales. So it does not matter what measure I use. So we added that if condition in my sales calculation item. But if I go back to the quantity, that's still not been applied because I did not tell the business logic in my quantity calculation item. So basically what I'm doing here is what I did for the sales, I need to apply this business logic in each of my so-called calculation item. So I'm going to each calculation item and I'm making the logical change here. So I'm gonna go. So again, the same thing what we did. And what we said is, okay, if my title is being used as a measure, that's the name of the measure I'm using, then return my title, otherwise return the order count, in this case, quantity and sales. So if I now apply these changes, of course, you have to save these changes. Now everything works perfectly fine. And this is great. But here is another caveat. So again, the first thing is to learn from here is when you're doing the calculation groups, you need to think through those exceptions which you really need to apply on your calculation items that, okay, don't perform this business rules in my calculation items, because whatever in this particular case, we said, okay, if my title is being used, don't return, just return my title. But now here is another challenge with this. So we have seen two DAX functions, selected measure and selected measure name. So if for my title, let's say, for example, I say, okay, this is not supposed to be the name of this measure. This measure is supposed to be called my selection. How would that work? So if I go here and change my measure name, which is very less likely you will do it. But again, this is, you have to think through all this thing to make sure that your reports are not breaking. So now we are back to square one. So again, I changed my measure or my measure name from my title to my selection, and now all of a sudden we start seeing the same numbers again. And of course, the logical reason behind that is, here I said if my selected measure name is my title, and now I change my measure name to my something different, my selection, and this thing is not working. So what's the alternate? How we overcome this? So to overcome this, there's another function which is very, very powerful. I'm gonna uncheck this for now. So there is another function called isSelected measure. So what does this gives is, if the is a selected measure is whatever the measure name I give here. So if my selected measure is called my what I called my selection. So what I want it to be, if my selected measure is my selection, then return my selection, otherwise order count. So I'm going to make this change only in the order count for now. So if I apply this, so I go back, and if I select order count, and everything is back to normal. So this is working perfectly fine. So the advantage of a selected, why I should use selected measure name versus is selected measure. So first of all, selected measure name and is selected measure both will do the job. Very less likely you will go back and make the changes in your measure name. But let's say if you do that, is selected measure in this particular case, if I go and change it to from my selection to call it my amazing title, my logic will not break when I'm using is selected measure. So as you can see, in case of order count, it is still giving me the whatever the business logic applied. So if I go back to my calculation group. So as you can see, it automatically changed because the measure has been renamed. It automatically renamed the measure wherever it was used. But in selected measure name, it did not, because that is it's a string. And then we wanted to, it doesn't know what we have in the string. It does not automatically change. But does that mean that we always should use a selected measure over selected measure name? That is again, I'm contradicting myself because I ran through this many times. This is where the planning is really, really important. So is selected, the question comes down to is, what about if I create another measure tomorrow? And I also want to see you have selected orders count. And then also I wanted to see here is, let's say we create another measure call it my selected dates, and then I want to concatenate X. So whatever the dates are selected. So I want to call table again. I'm not going to go through this DAX. So I want to concatenate over selected date, which is again a calculation group, and I want selected date concatenate. That's a column. Sorry, this is too big. And then I want to separate by comma. So what I'm trying to do here is whatever is selected, sense. So whatever is selected in my selected date calculation group, I want to create concatenate and create a title. So let's see how does that look like. I'm going to make a copy of this one quickly. Let's decrease the size to 20. And let's use another title in here, which is the new one, my selected date. So if I put that in there, again, because this is showing 871, again, because we did not put this logic in our calculation item. So does that mean that every time I need to go back to the calculation item and then make the changes? So this is where the planning comes. So what I'm going to do is my convention here is every time I'm creating a title, I want to make sure the name of the title is in the measure name. So I'm going to say my selected dates title. And I wanted my my amazing title. Already the title is in there. So then I can go back to my calculation group and apply a one single logic here. I can say here, if contains string of my selected measure name contains the word title, then return this. Again, the selected measure is going to come in the picture. Otherwise, the order count. So if I take this logic back to my quantity, because we have to apply it everywhere, each calculation items and sales. So what I'm saying here is, hey, selected measure name, we already know that it returns the name of the measure. So I'm saying is, if my measure name contains the word title, doesn't matter where it is, then return whatever the measure is on the visual, otherwise return the sales. And we did it for each and every calculation item. And if you apply these changes, and they should work, everything should work. So now it's perfectly fine showing me you have selected orders count, order date, ship date, and due date. Or I mean, I'm just demoing it here. So let's say tomorrow I come back and I also want to create another title which shows the period. Now I just one thing I need to make sure that I'm creating a measure which I want to avoid in my calculation items to know to contain the business logic. So I can call it my period title, and same thing I can do concatenate X, which is first thing is of course is the time intelligence. That's my table name, and then the column which is period again, I think. Yeah, time intelligence period, and I want to separate by comma or whatever. So comma. So if I use this particular my period title in another visual here, let's say I want to create this another title card visual and then put it would work, because the reason behind that is this contains the word title. But if I, for example, remove the word title, of course, this will fall apart, because our business logic said the measure name should have a title in it. So end of the day, the calculation groups are really, really powerful, but they then lead to certain pitfalls. There's a lot more. I have actually a whole playlist in my YouTube channel, around 15 videos talking about calculation groups. And a lot of those videos are basically talking about the corner cases, which you don't think otherwise when you're developing calculation groups, and things you really need to be careful, like precedence, like which now I think we don't have a time right now. We created like 3 different calculation groups. Which calculation groups is running first and then second and third, where it get decided. So there is a precedence setting in the calculation groups. I will quickly show you that. You have to be really careful. Like this is the calculation group. So it says calculation group precedence. So basically the highest the precedent that runs first, and then the second and the third. So if you're working with the multiple calculation groups, we really need to make sure which one to run first, and then second, and then third, and then fourth, and whatnot. So there's a lot of other things. Unfortunately, I don't have a time to talk about this, but amazing things you can do with calculation groups. It's really powerful. But the one thing you have to be careful, thinking ahead, how it will behave when you don't want to apply your calculation groups on your certain measures. Because as we saw, we created the title measure and all of a sudden it started returning sales and the quantity and the number of orders. So you have to plan around that. Like what happens if these kind of measures I'm using in my visuals, how they should work with calculation groups, how they should behave, what should be the behavior, and then you should need to apply those calculation, you need to apply those business logic. And I guess I can talk about this for another 1 hour, but given the time, I just want to wrap it up to make sure that I covered everything. So just quickly jumping back to, we talked about calculation groups, and we switched the measures dynamic from format string. We looked into all this stuff. I think that's pretty much it. Again, my YouTube channels, it doesn't matter which YouTube, I'm not saying that you go to my YouTube channel, but I'm really, really passionate about calculation groups, and really all the videos which I've done in the calculation groups on my channel is because I very confidently went to my clients, did a solution on calculation groups, and all of a sudden fell apart because something weird cases comes up, and then I'm like, okay, this other people can be, end up seeing the same issues and how we should solve and whatnot. So the playlist on my YouTube channel about the calculation groups is really addressing business problems which we come across. But I'm going to give an opportunity if there's some outstanding questions, or feel free to ask questions. I would appreciate if you scan this code and just provide your feedback. It helps me to improve my presentation, and something I need to improve. I appreciate your your feedback will be really very valuable to me. So just quickly, I'm gonna. Sorry, Manmeet, I cannot do that, but you please touch base with me? I can really get you through. Currency exchange, yes. What is Monkey Tools? I guess Ken is the right person to answer that. This is brilliant. Can you remove the title visual from the calc? Yes, we did that. Thank you. Okay, thank you for a great demo. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Parv. Appreciate it. I just wish we had these things in Excel, but I just want one quick question that I have for you. And I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to confirm it. Like, you do need Tabular Editor to do this. You can't do this through regular old Power BI desktop, can you?
No.
That is such a shame.
Yeah, no, there's nothing. Either you use Visual Studio, basically you need to open the underlying model to add that, right? So, but Tabular Editor is much more friendly user interface to work with, but there's nothing in Power BI desktop.
Yeah, it's odd to me that that they haven't actually built that in there. I mean, Tabular Editor is fantastic, but it still seems strange that you would have a feature that had to be configured by a third-party tool. Is just kind of weird to me, but there you go. At any rate, thank you for a great presentation. Even though Parv says I'm not going to tell you to check out my YouTube channel, I'm going to tell you go check out Parv's YouTube channel, because somebody's got to say it if you're not going to. So, but there you go. Fantastic, man. I really appreciate you coming back and doing this again. Thanks for a great presentation. Man, there's a ton of power in there. As I say, I really wish these things were in Excel. I could definitely make some use of these. And I also want to remember to thank Joseph for his fantastic presentation of what's new as well. Always a challenge for me to remember by the time we get to the evening that that we had a stuff before this, right? So on that note, I think I don't see any other questions coming into the chat, Parv. So I think what we'll do is we'll sign off for tonight and remind everybody that we've got some pretty cool presentations coming up with Chandu and Alice Drummond and within the next month here. So don't forget to RSVP for those. Thanks again, my friend. Appreciate it. We'll definitely have you back for doing something more in future, maybe even diving deeper into calculation groups, because it sounds like you got tons of material in that area. So there you go. And you threw yourself on mute just at the end, Parv.
Oh, sorry, I put my, yeah, no, there's
okay.
a lot of stuff. I can talk another session, advanced calculation groups, like, so it's so amazing things. Yeah, it's awesome.
We'll definitely get that on the list for future. Awesome. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll catch you next time.